Good morning, everybody. So first of all, let me thank MGM Education Unlimited and MGM University to speak at this prestigious national conference on Lead the Future. I've been here before. This is the second time I'm standing on this stage. And for me, it's like visiting a shrine, created as it is on the Gandhian principle of education for all, and the core of education being character building. In many ways, I salute the vision of the trustees of this institution, which formed this institution. And I call it purposeful vision. Vision is merely a destination. It asks you where do you want to be. Whereas purpose is a continuing journey in which vision destinations are only milestones. So when you have a purposeful vision, the journey continues as it continues for MGM as well. And I think it is due to this purposeful vision of the trustees that MGM today has grown, leading as it does from the glow of its spirit to serve. So what I propose to do today, I'm first of all grateful to both ladies here, Aparna and Namrata, for inviting me to speak at this esteemed conference, as well as for inviting my wife to be here. Yeah. Her presence diminishes my importance to some extent, but she is the most important person for me. And I don't think there is any husband anywhere in the world who with confidence can dare to say that he's more important than his wife. Today I wish to share with you thoughts which in my humble opinion are critical for education and even more so for educators. Education has been relevant to times. Over the period of time, right from Gurukul to Baiju, although Baiju is not a good name these days. It has adapted to changing needs over thousands of years. But I think we have crossed the stage where adaptation is important. We need disruptive change. We no longer adapt because of the speed with which the world moves. I don't think there is any moment where you could do with only adaptation. You will need disruptive change. Sumantra Ghoshal was my favorite management guru from the London School of London School of Business. And he's no more now. He died a few years ago, only 50 years old of a brain hemorrhage, but he was someone I looked up to, although I never met him. He described disruptive change or disruptive modification to things that we normally do, as he called it constructive destruction. And he compared it with the birth of a butterfly. Yeah. The stage before a butterfly is born is basically a caterpillar. And before becoming a caterpillar, it sheds all its limbs, it turns blind, and then splits into two. And from there, you get the butterfly. The disruptive change in education to create a new butterfly is what I felt I should emphasize a little bit about. Looking at our own century in which we live, the first quarter of this century is almost coming to an end. Some people wonder if there will be a world left at the end of the century. Be that as it may, it's going to be very different at the end of the century. Not just different, vastly different at the end of the century. But Stephen Covey, the management guru, once said, in a world of profound change, you need things that do not change. Educators have to ponder and think, what is it that you would like to retain and what is it that you would like to change? The obvious answer is that everything can change except one, which must be always relevant and should always remain the priority of all educators and education, which is character building, which is preparing people with integrity, in order to create a better world. So everything can change except building a good human being with integrity and character. As you heard, I worked with eminent men in Tatas. I was a part of J.R.D. Tata's office. Nani Palkhiwala, you heard that name, I'm sure. The great jurist. And I don't have to introduce Mr. Palkhiwala, but someone who everyone looked up to. His budget speech every year after the budget used to attract an audience of 100,000 people. 1 lakh people came to his budget speech. And the whole Cricket Club of India stadium had to be booked, where normally cricket matches happened. The reason I'm referring to him is because the line that he says about character is something that I've sort of deeply engraved in my heart. He says, character is integrity plus altruism. Fame is vapor, popularity an accident. Riches take wing, and those who cheer you today will be there to curse you tomorrow. Only one thing endures, and that is character. So I thought I'll share these lovely lines from Palkhiwala with you. So today I'd like to share with you a quick look through my eyes at a pentagonal prism that I want to present before you. There are 5 sides to this prism, and I'm going to share some thoughts. I'm going to be provocative. At the end of each, I'll raise a few questions, and the answers are in the question itself. And as it was said that I like to begin my day by looking at cartoons. I don't read the news. I first always read the cartoons. It's the right way to open a day, if I may say so. Otherwise, you know what the news is like. It's not worth hearing or reading or viewing. So I will be during the course of my talk referring to cartoons. Cartoons have this immense power to profoundly state something which a whole book may not be able to do. So let me begin with the political scene, the world that we see. The world is in turmoil, as we all know. It almost brings back memory of World War II. Some of you would be very young to think of World War II, but I was born during the war. And it's very similar to the situation in World War II. You had the Axis powers on one side, which was Hitler, Mussolini in Italy, and the Emperor in Japan. And you had the Allies, dominated by England, France, USSR, and the US. You know that the Allies won the war. But the question is not who wins or loses. The war creates tremendous upheavals and damage to the world and to human beings. But today we have a similar polarization. We have the European countries, US on one side, and on the other side you have China, you have North Korea, and Russia is like another bloc. Added the third dimension to this is the Islamist, fundamental, radical power. We cannot ignore it. We feel it every day. So it's not that Islam is wrong. It's the radical Islamists who have created this mayhem for humanity. And Donald Tusk, who is the Prime Minister of Poland, he very clearly said that the situation in Europe and in the world is very similar to what he saw and what is reported in history during World War II, or at the beginning of World War II. As you know, World War II began with Hitler invading Poland on 2nd of September 1939. And the trigger for all this is global dominance, economic dominance or political dominance, and territorial expansion. So if you look at Russia, Ukraine is its goal. Israel, Gaza is its goal, whatever way you want to prove it. So China, I was surprised not really surprised, the Chinese are not very dependable, but China wants a part of Russia's eastern territory. They are friends, but this is the way Chinese operate. Whereas Arunachal Pradesh, China claims to be its own own part of its own country. It's a difficult situation, ladies and gentlemen, all over the world. Ladakh Leh, China has its eyes on it, and it claims that that is its territory. Racial and ethnic cleansing, if you look at it compared to World War II, it was the Germans or Aryans versus the Jews, as Hitler would have called it. Today, the Islamic fundamentalist and the rest of the world. That is 2024, that was 1939. Wars are raging all over the place. Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, I've just noted a few, Hezbollah, Lebanon, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Middle East, the Houthis of Yemen, all borders are simmering today. We are sitting on a heap of gunpowder, literally. Hotspots, South China Sea, Taiwan, Red Sea, Iran, US, Israel, Syria. Yeah, Israel attacked Syria, unbelievable. So the impact of all this political developments that you are seeing around you is not just that a few countries are feeling its effect. The effect is felt by all humankind. Trade is affected. Worse still, the environment is affected. Environment is a great concern. I'll speak about it a little later. And today the world is involved in only one race, that is the arms race. India itself has been caught in the arms race. We need to defend our own border, but I cannot imagine a time when India would have voluntarily tried to become the supreme-most power in respect of arms. Our philosophy is very different. So coming to a cartoon, the father is telling the little boy, war is complex, a political, military, industrial complex. So you've got all three in it, political, military, and industrial complex. You look at US, does it sound like a superpower that it did one time in the past? Can you really call them champions of democracy? Europe is devastated with migrants and other issues, and the 32-member NATO body looks like an important body. So my questions here at the end of this portion is, should education not cover and education not teach the importance of peace? I want that to be a part of disruptive change. Should educators and teachers not promote and teach inclusiveness? Should education and teachers not teach acceptance and not just tolerance? These are the thoughts that I like to leave with you. One of the things that teachers and educators no longer can do or really have the great responsibility to do is to build more Gandhis in thought, build more Mandelas in thought, build more Martin Luther Kings in thought, Dalai Lama philosophy. This is what I believe is necessary. Gandhi himself said, I am a politician trying to be a saint. Should we not then create, because of what the world is facing, green managers? I'm not talking of people who are experts in green technology. I'm talking of green managers, green becoming the thinking, part of the thinking of everyone in society, whether you're a politician, whether you're a businessman, whether you're an advocate, whether you're a teacher, all disciplines of human existence. If they can think green, and I don't have to explain green, you can change many things that you see around you. Ancient texts have so much about green. I don't know how many people really study ancient texts, how many people really go into history to understand what is green. I'll give you an example from my own group. I have so much of Tata in me that once when I was introduced, it was said that my blood group was T. Jamsetji Tata was the founder of the Tata Group, was a priest when he was only 8 years and 10 months old. So part of his teachings came from our prophet, which is Zarathustra. And Zarathustra, 3,500 years ago, think of what kind of pollution would have existed if at all at that time. 3,500 years ago said that do not pollute earth, air or water. That's what he learned from Zarathustra. And when he, as a businessman, going in his horse-driven carriage around the city of Bombay and seeing smoke billowing from chimneys because coal had to generate steam and coal had to be fired to generate steam, and steam was the only energy source at that time, not petrol, diesel, there was no electricity. So when he saw those fumes, which was nothing compared to what we see today, he decided to give India and give Bombay a clean source of energy. And that's how we started the Tata Hydro Company. Today we are the largest power generator in India, 14,000 plus megawatt capacity, out of which 38 to 40% is from renewable resources, which is like solar power and wind power. I was delighted to see yesterday that in renewable energy, Adanis have defeated us by starting another plant. They are doing great work for environment, and their capacity of renewable energy is going to be close to 10,000 megawatts. The second, the economic scene. The impact of global politics is impacting lives everywhere. In 2021, the growth rate of the world economy was 6%. In 2024, it is estimated to be 3%, half. 18% of the world's population, ladies and gentlemen, which means 104 billion people, live in multi-dimensional poverty in 110, which is 56% of the world's total 195 countries. So you can see what economics is suffering because of political things. In India, for example, our per capita GDP ranks 143 out of 195 countries. Bangladesh per capita is higher than that of India. Why is it so? We have made tremendous progress in the past maybe 15 years, 20 years. But the progress is all dissipated in many ways because of the growth in population. In 2023, India became the most populous country in the world. By 2060, India will have a population of 170 crores, estimates, which will taper down by the end of the century to 153 crores. And at 153 crores, we will still be the most populous country in the world. What does it do? It creates a lopsided development, lopsided distribution of resources, lopsided distribution of power of money in a certain way. Number of billionaires in India are increasing. We have close to 1,700 people in India whose wealth is more than 1,000 crores for each person. It also tells you that 1% of India's population controls more than 40% of India's wealth. You can see the divide where it is. I am thinking of Karl Marx, really, the father of communism. Because when you have a situation like that, when a bridegroom wears a watch which is 18 crores in value, then you know what happens in society. Karl Marx spoke of capitalism creating its own antithesis, which was socialism, and socialism then becoming synthesis in communism. He forgot that communism also would create its own antithesis, and it created it again in the rise of capitalism. In China, how many billionaires are there? Jack Ma is number 7 in the list of those billionaires in there. So there is no real economic model, except to scatter more than what you gather, as what we have done in turtles. So the question is, then should not education address the lesson of spreading prosperity? How do you teach to be generous? How do you teach to make sure that your profit is not only the result of greed, but something that you can spread? Again, from the Tata story, some of you, if not all of you, will be knowing that the parent company, which is Tata Sons, it's a very rich company. 66% today, it used to be 80% of that, is held by Tata Trust. The owners of Tata Sons, today, 2/3 of that ownership is held by Tata Trust. So what happens? When Tata Sons declares its dividend, which last year was 1,750%, involving a financial outlay of more than 700 crores, 500 crores, to be precise, 467 crores went into Tata Trust. And from there, it goes to you and me, and to support so many worthy social causes. J.R.D. Tata called it the cycle of wealth maybe 60 years ago. He said the wealth gathered by Jamsetji and his sons in half a century of industrial pioneering formed but a minute fraction of the amount by which they enriched the nation. The whole of that wealth is held in trust for the people and exclusively for their benefit. The cycle is thus complete. What came from the people has gone back to the people many times over. I quoted precisely exactly the words he had mentioned. So the questions that come to my mind is, therefore, should not education teach sharing prosperity? Should not education teach the relevance and importance of population control or population management? J.R.D. Tata in 1992 was awarded by the United Nations the Population Award, in which the citation referred to him as a great son of India and a great humanist. And he was the chairman of the Family Planning Foundation of India when I was a part of his office. And his case was that for prosperity to spread, you will have to manage your population. And for environment to be protected, population management, if not harsh control, becomes a priority. The third prism that I like to refer to, world social scene. I like to call it the world social scene. I like to begin with Martin Luther King. I'll quote him a couple of times in my talk today. He says, "Our scientific power has outrun our spiritual power. We now have guided missiles and misguided men." That's what he says. Look at the approach of parents to children and the approach of children to parents. This is a thought from Devdutt Patnaik. Today, because money is the only thing that you would like to acquire, parents want children to become rich, make sure that they are, and whether that happens through playing an IPL game. Smriti Mandhana at the age of 27 is worth 27 crores. So how to make quick money? Become rich. And their expectation is that from that money, and they are well provided for, they will look after their parents. But what happens? The children also start doing the same thing, and grandparents become nannies to the grandchildren. So the cycle, in a way, continues. And because they have to become profitable, return on investment, if I may call it, people look at parents, as he says, for children, for parents is an investment. And parents for children are cost centers. This is the world in which we are caught today. Modern games, it is all about winning at all costs. You have to win. The old game of Monopoly, which is outdated today, told you how to win in business. You look at generally all the video games, it's all about destruction, it's all about aggression, it's all about winning at any cost. Whereas, as Devdutt Patnaik again says, there was a time when you played snakes and ladders. Today your children will throw it at you, what is this stupid game? But look at snakes and ladders and the philosophy behind it. You know how to climb from the steps, and when the snake gulps you, you come down again. So it teaches you the ups and downs of life. And when you are at 100, and when you exit because you won the game, what happens? You learn to stop. So snakes and ladders has great significance. I'm not saying you tomorrow start putting a snakes and ladder board everywhere, but are we teaching aggression or are we teaching philosophy? The way to live, the way to take good and bad at the same time. Religion, big problem today. It's all about fundamental Islam versus the Kafirs. Atrocities, being committed in the name of religion. I don't think Muhammad or Allah would have ever, whether they would have ever permitted it, he would have recommended anything like that. In my 2-day corporate culture program, I refer to 3 teachings from the Quran. That is the Sijd, which is humility, Karamat, which is charity, and Sijd, which is Khushu, which is humility, Karamat, which is charity, and Sijd, which is truth. And I conclude that program with these things. I don't want to elaborate, it's not the purpose here. But look at their own conditions, Shias and Sunnis, Uyghurs in China, who's looking after them? The Rohingyas from Myanmar, who's bothered? On the other hand, you're trying to impose something, whereas your own people are suffering so much. The dichotomy of all this is that you will find temples in Dubai, you have temples in Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, Muscat, Buddhist temples in communist China. When I and my wife and daughters went to China, we could easily walk into, in Mao's communism, you would never have been allowed to enter a temple. There was nothing like, because as communists say, religion is the opium of the masses. Jonathan Swift, a 17th century satirist, essayist, thinker, he says we have enough religion to make us hate, but not enough to make us love one another. Everything but humanitarianism is being spoken about in religion, whereas humanitarianism is really the only religion that should be followed by humanity. Refugees today are a world crisis. I think it's one of the greatest crises that the world has seen in centuries. It's not only a problem for those who leave their own motherlands, or fatherlands as some would call it. It is also a problem where they arrive. They destroy the culture, the economy, the political system of that country. So it's a huge crisis. In all this, most promising, of course, in all this mayhem has been the empowerment of women, the emancipation of women. That has been, I think, the greatest contribution in terms of social changes that have taken place and which I have referred to. Yet there are still predominantly Islamic societies where women are not treated the way one would expect them to be treated. You know the names of the countries, so I won't get into it, but Afghanistan, Iran, Taliban-dominated portions, ISI-dominated portions. And on the other hand, an orthodox country like Saudi Arabia is changing. Women are allowed to drive. Women can now sit with their spouses in a particular meeting or whatever it is, which was never allowed. And there are many more changes, progressive changes happening in Saudi Arabia, which is really the most orthodox Islamic country. In India, Nari Shakti is not a new word. Shiva without Shakti would only be a hermit. It will interest you to know that 33% of all chartered accountants in India are women. I enjoy watching WPL more than the IPL. I thought I played good cricket, but when I look at the way these girls are bowling at more than 130 kilometers an hour, the way they feel, the way they dive, the way they hit a sixer. Today, if I was asked to play with my standard at that time, I would say I won't be able to play against these girls. They are too good. 17% of India's GDP is contributed by women. It's not a big number, but it has to grow. But 17% is contributed by women. Again, quoting from an example of Tata Steel, which is my parent company. I call Tata Steel the Brahmin of the Tata Group. That is where culture is most deep-rooted. And I'm so passionate about it that some of my Jamshedpur friends tell me, are you sure blood is flowing through your veins or is it hot metal from Jamshedpur? So this is what happens when you are a part of Tata Steel. The reason I'm referring to Tata Steel is their target is that by next year, 25% of our workforce, which is 80,000, that means 20,000 people, 20,000 jobs will be mined by women. You look at, we have a group of firefighters, complete women troop, 23. They are known as Flames of Fire. They are firefighters. We have women at mining. We have many mines, not the coal mines where you have to go 1200 feet underground, but I'm talking of open cast mines. Women work in mines, and not only in the day shift, they work all 3 shifts in mines. And the 25% target that we have set for ourselves includes LGBTQ community. Today, 40 people belonging to the LGBTQ community are moving heavy equipment in our Kalinganagar plant, 8 million ton plant in Odisha today. But all this is not without danger to men. All this progress that has happened is not without danger to men. Not because women are taking away jobs of men, but today you have to be, in a way, afraid of women. They can fabricate stories. There are so many innocent people who are being questioned, their reputations are at stake. I'm not saying all women do that, but this is the other side of women empowerment. I'm not even suggesting that we should not even empower women. I'm just telling you that there is also a responsibility. So how do you teach young girls to understand responsibility of a woman in society? Otherwise, you could be prosecuted under POSH, as you know, prevention of sexual harassment to women. And it's difficult to pay a compliment today. There was a time I could compliment a lady and say, "You're looking very, very pretty today." Today I have to say, no, I have to be careful. I have to say, that sari, Namrata, suits you very much. So you see, you have to dilute it. Rusi Modi, my most favorite boss in Tata Steel, who recruited me in Tata, he could crack a smutty joke at a lady, and the lady would only say, "Rusi, don't be naughty." Today that camaraderie between two genders is slowly disappearing. So how do you create that camaraderie? How do you ensure that intent is to be seen, not what is said? But it's difficult because not many people know how to differentiate either while using or while listening. And all this happened during the Me Too movement. You remember the Me Too movement? Me Too, Me Too. I believe there was a very disappointed lady politician, I won't mention her name. When Me Too was happening, she commented and said, "Why not me?" Finally, in this chapter, democracy. Democracy undoubtedly is the best form of governance that man has invented. It owes its origin to 500, 600 centuries before Christ. It originated in Greece out of 2 words. The one word is demos. Demos means common people, and kratos means power or strength. So power of the common people has created democracy. But is democracy a perfect democracy today? Today the ill-informed many are governing over the discerning few. Question that always comes to my mind is, are we electing people or are we electing parties? Think about it. Imagine that the best people from any field in India were all members of parliament. Maybe you'll have a problem with forming a government, but that can be easily tackled. I'm a political science graduate. I don't want to get into that debate. But imagine that the best 500 people, irrespective of caste, religion, and or discipline, best musicians, why Rajya Sabha only, best lawyers, Falina Iman, anybody, you look at them, jurists. Imagine a parliament made of talent of that power, 500 plus seats. They could do much more good to India than a bunch of people with criminal records. Ansari, somebody calls him a messiah. He has been to jail 5 times. He died recently, and you know what the paper said about him. Now elections are upon us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to plead the case of any party because I would rather elect a good person, irrespective of the party, than just the person. It's very difficult to find a good person today. Yeah. So I have 2 cartoons. The Russian one. You know, Putin won the war with 86% votes. So when somebody asked him, and this is a part of the cartoon, what about the 14%? Putin said, I'm going to send them to Siberia to teach them how to vote. Unbelievable. Our own election, Indian cartoon. The boy is asking the father, how do you differentiate between Daiva Shakti and Asura Shakti when both keep changing sides? So how do you manage? Codes of conduct are important, but more important is creating a discerning electorate. Education has to play a role in creating a discerning electorate. Until such an electorate is created, is it a lost cause? Is democracy a lost cause? I am reminded of Martin Luther King, who said, we must accept finite disappointment but never lose infinite hope. So we are looking for, hoping that we will someday hit upon the right democracy. So questions is, as I said, should education not address the question of creating a well-informed, discerning electorate? That is a poser that I would like to leave on at today's session. Should education not explain the true meaning and significance of success? Devdutt Patnaik, in an article which was written Vishnu Economics, he says, what preserves the world? Governance, good governance, or dharma? What is good governance? He says, adequate wealth generation for adequate wealth distribution. That is his concept of a good governance. Then should education not contribute to building societies where people can live happily and properly in their own lands? Should education not propound and help to spread the one and only true religion, which is humanitarianism? Some of you might be knowing about Kabir. God is speaking through Kabir, and he says, God is saying, "Moko kaha kaha dhoonde re bande, main to tere paas mein. Na main deval, na main masjid, na main Kabe Kailash mein." So can we not create that kind of a society where this philosophy, you can't create Kabirs, you are very unusual to be a Kabir, but can we not create a society through education where religion means humanitarianism? Technology. Looking at technology, I am not against technology. I am only going to share concerns. Technology has advanced to an extent that it has made life extremely comfortable. Sometimes I feel too comfortable for people. It has paralyzed us from expending physical energy. But all the same, nobody can challenge the achievements of technology. But I like to share with you a few concerns. And in a slightly humorous way, I like to play a clip. Suraj, will you kindly play the first clip? What was to be a convenience has become an obsession. I'm not showing you this clip so that you should not fiddle with your phones and listen to me. You can do what you like, but I'm just saying how a small tool is ruling our lives. Humankind is losing time, is losing the power to reflect because of these types of obsessions. Speed at any cost, at lightning speed, does not leave with you time to reflect or time to really think about life, and we end up passing through life without having existed. You become only existential and not really living life. So I had picked up something many years ago. It's a 6-paragraph, 6 stanzas. I'm going to read only 4 of it for you, because people don't have time today because of gadgets like that. They are in Hindustani or Hindi. I'm sure you would like it. The title is Waqt Nahi. हर खुशी है लोगों के दामन में, पर एक हंसी के लिए वक्त नहीं. दिन रात दौड़ती दुनिया में जिंदगी के लिए ही वक्त नहीं. सारे नाम मोबाइल में हैं, पर दोस्ती के लिए वक्त नहीं. गैरों की क्या बात करें जब अपनों के लिए ही वक्त नहीं. पैसों की दौड़ में ऐसे दौड़े कि थकने का भी वक्त नहीं. पराए एहसानों की क्या कद्र करें जब अपने सपनों के लिए ही वक्त नहीं. एंड फाइनली, तू ही बता इस जिंदगी का क्या होगा कि हर पल मरने वालों को जीने के लिए भी वक्त नहीं. So profile of a teacher, ladies and gentlemen, is changing. It's not changing, frankly it has changed. With just basic education, it is possible for a person to teach himself or herself what we teach today. There was this cartoon where a young boy has taken his essay to the teacher, and the teacher looks at it and says, very good, but surely this is from ChatGPT. So that his student says, yes, it is from ChatGPT, but I corrected the spellings. Today, artificial intelligence can do almost everything. Cloning of voices, putting you in places you've never been to. Artificial intelligence has taken over. Computers can, and I don't want to elaborate artificial intelligence, I'm sure you read and hear more about it. Computers can beat you at a game of chess. Machines can bowl at you at speeds that you can never think of, at different directions. We today have synthetic tracks where you can practice against a spinner or against a bouncer. Technology has taken you to that level, which are the good part of the technology. Today the other day I spoke with Milind Rege, who was a dear friend of mine, Bombay captain and selector once upon a time. Because there is a thing doing around, it says it's likely to happen not very late, but in the near future, very near future. You have intelligent stumps, which will dispense with the need for an umpire. The color changing in the stumps will tell you whether it's a low ball, whether it was a six balls or over of the over. So technology can take over games, which were basically for entertainment and for, shall I say, building you physically and mentally. J.R.D. Tata was totally committed to sports because he believed that only a healthy body could contain a healthy mind. So is it then that the man is turning into robots in the hands of machines, the other way around? Is humankind planning its own destruction? I think when I raised that question to myself, once again a cartoon came in very handy, where the robot is telling the man, the human, that I can beat you at everything. I'm better than you in everything. But I like one thing, which I will never have. I will never have a soul. So he said, I'll never have a soul. That is what is typical about mankind. We are people with souls. Are we using technology with souls? How do you educate people? March 13, 2024, which is last month, the European Parliament passed a landmark artificial intelligence law. It emphasizes that humans must remain in control and artificial intelligence should be used for leveraging, allow me to read that, for leveraging new discoveries, economic growth, social progress and unlocking of human potential. That is what they have suggested. The US has recently passed a law, but this is the landmark law passed by the European Union. So the question is, should education and educators not teach ethical use of technology? put the soul back into technology? Should education not present the losing man to machines? Should it not prevent losing men to machines? Harnessing technology correctly. Should education not teach the value of having time to reflect? I want to tell you a little bit from my being a Dean of Business Excellence days in management institutes, in 3 management institutes in Bombay. And I used to teach business excellence, which was all learning. It's a 7-session program, very popular at that time. And I taught it because I was an external examiner for the Tata Business Excellence model. I teach it through a case study, and I also, as a consultant from my firm, offer it to clients. And the 3 things which I used to in between talk about, and at the end I used to suggest to my students, who are all MBAs, the 3 things were: business has a larger purpose. I'm repeating, business has a larger purpose. Ethics is paramount, and learn to pause. These were the 3 things I used to always say. Business has a larger purpose, ethics is paramount, and learn to pause, which is what I learned from my group, which I continue to serve in my 58th year with the group. So one day my wife, me and my daughters, and a friend of one of my daughters, it was, I think, 15th August, 75 years of India's independence, and we were waiting in the Taj outside the Shamiana to get a table. And a girl walked up to me, and I can't remember, so many students pass through my programs. She came to me with her fiancé, and she said, "Sir, you remember what you taught us?" So I said, "I don't know what you're referring to." She said, "Sir, you taught us business has a larger purpose, ethics is paramount, and learn to pause." I never forgot that, and in the past 5 years that I'm working, this has been my guiding principle. So for me, that was one guru moment. In your docket you will have a note about the difference between a guru and teacher. So that was my guru moment. The last prism, human values. They are being really eroded because greed is dominating the thinking of man. Consumerism has consumed man. Give you a simple example. It's a joke perhaps. I just saw it somewhere or somebody mentioned it to me. As you know, the Mutha river flows in Pune, and there were these 2 guys standing on the banks of the river, not the banks, on the bridge from where they were seeing the river flow. It had a lot of water, and it was flowing with some natural attraction for anybody. And one of them saw a crocodile, and he patted the other fellow and said, pointing to the crocodile, you know what he said? "Bug, Laila, Lacoste." Yeah? People are relating a crocodile to the brand, a Lacoste. Unbelievable. So it's a world of buying and selling, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about competition, no collaboration, winning at all costs. Ethics is given lip service and practiced when convenient. 2 more corporate cartoons. I come from a corporate world. One fellow joins a company and he reports to the HRO on the first day. And the CHRO, the Chief Human Resource Fellow, tells him, "We have a very strict company policy. Do not bring your conscience to work." In Tata's we said, "Bring only your conscience to work, we'll teach you the rest." The other one, where a perfectly good candidate is rejected. And he's not rejected because he's not capable. The person who is sort of recruiting him, the HR person, he is saying, sorry to say, but the nature of our business demands people with character flaws. That was their requirement, character flaws. So that's the world you live in. And financial dishonesty is not the only dishonesty we can speak about. Financial dishonesty originates from intellectual dishonesty. Financial dishonesty is one of the commonest dishonesty is when you don't tell your boss your true opinion about a matter. Speaking truth to power, as Manekshaw did to Indira Gandhi. Yeah, if you have seen Manekshaw, he's one of my most favorite characters. I've read his biography. So Manekshaw had the courage to tell Indira Gandhi we were not ready to enter Bangladesh. So do you encourage being spoken truth to power, and do you speak truth to power? I had a problem when I was working with G.R.D. A man of that stature, I was not worth the shoelace of his shoes. But if I had to say something, only thing is, how do you say it? I used to say, sir, obviously, with your experience and maturity, but I cannot argue against it. But do you think you can look at it from this point of view? And he said, why not? And very often he heard me. So do you speak truth at the time when it is required by the organization, not by your boss? So that's character. The brochure of this conference, in fact, begins with the first Gandhi quote, where he says, carefully watch your thoughts. If you see your brochure, you will see, carefully watch your thoughts. Our own prophet, Zarathustra, in my case, he says, taking the first step with a good thought, the second with a good word, and the third with a good deed, I entered paradise. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds, humta, hukta, hubrashta in Persian, forms the tripod on which rests the Zoroastrian religion. Our own Upanishads, these are my wife's favorite lines. It says, as you desire, so is your intent. As is your intent, so is your will. As is your will, so is your deed. As is your deed, so is your destiny. So everything begins from thought, everything begins from intent. And that your deepest desire ultimately results into creating your own destiny. Everything begins with thought, and most powerful influencers of thought are who? Parents and teachers. But if parents are looking at children as investments, when will they have the time to teach what they should teach? The time has come when teachers will have to acquire a parental role. It's not enough to use whiteboards and blackboards. Teachers will have, today are required to acquire a parental role. That is the need of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. And the difference is that from teachers we have to now look at becoming gurus. When I was teaching in management institutes, my colleagues used to tell me, Don, you're wasting your time. This generation doesn't care for values. All that it wants is to have enough money so that they can retire at the age of 50. They're just running. There's nothing. Why are you wasting your time? Believe me, nothing was farther from the truth. They latched on to every word that I said. I told them so many stories coming from all kinds of sources. A lot of inspirational stories which came automatically to me, but so many stories from all over the world, from mythology, from what really inspired them. And believe me, there was no fault on the part of the students. The trouble was we were not telling them enough stories. And they latched on. And I have in the next 5 minutes or 10, I will conclude this. But the other moment that I had, which was very significant, my wife and I were attending the wedding of a student of mine. His name was Drupad Raja. It was at the National Sports Club in NSCI, as it is popularly known in Haji Ali. And we were waiting in a queue to meet the bride and the bridegroom. So Drupad, the bridegroom, saw me from there and he sent his brother. He said, you bring her earlier. Don't make him stand in the queue. Now, even G.R.D. Tata, Ratan Tata, we all are used to standing in the queue, irrespective of how far back we are. In my book, I've written a humorous story about sometimes what courtesy can do. But his brother came to me and he said, "Sir, Drupad is saying you should not stand in the queue." I said, "No, I'm going to stand in the queue. And why should I, deprive somebody who's ahead of me?" He says, "But he's insisting." I said, "Tell him I'm fine. When I and my wife reach the stage, whatever blessings we have to give him, we'll give. But we are not coming. I'm not breaking the queue." So he went and told the bridegroom. But the bridegroom then said, "In that case, you go and stand with him until he reaches the stage." I thought it was not necessary, but courtesy, so he stood with me. And that's the time when he said something to me which remained forever in my mind, and that was my second Guru moment. He says, "Sir, Drupad was today working for a company, and he was saying to me that whenever he faces an ethical dilemma, he always asks himself what Doongaji sir would have done in Tata if he had faced a similar situation. And that changes his perspective. And he says that has prevented me from making many mistakes. Ethical dilemmas can be solved by people by just telling them what is the truth and how to ferret it out and do what is the right thing to do." So I'm going to ask, here is a clip that I'm going to show you. It's just 2 minutes. It's of Turkish Airlines, where the pilot, and you will enjoy it, it's in Turkish, but you have subtitles in English. And the pilot is saying that he's not only our teacher, but he also like a father. And teachers will have to become like fathers. Yeah. Second.
Değerli hocalarımız, haftanız konuşuyor. Bugün önemli bir gün. Türk Hava Yolları ailesinin pilotu olarak görev yapmamda büyük eli olan ustam, havacılık duayeni olan öğretmenim Selahattin Ona uçağımızda bizlerle. İnsanın öğretmenin kendi babası olması ayrı bir güzellikmiş. 20 yıl kaptan, 10 yıl pilot eğitmeni olarak benim gibi binlerce gence rehber oldu. Onları yetiştirdi. Buradan ona tüm öğrenciler adına sonsuz şükranlarımı sunuyor ve ellerinden öpüyorum. İyi ki varsın, iyi ki öğretmenimsin, iyi ki babamsın. Karşılaşmıştık. Ben sürekli sorular soruyorum. Evlat gelsene. Sen madem bu kadar meraklısın ne pilot düşünüyorsun?
Öğretmenler gününüz kutlu olsun Selahattin öğretmenim. Ellerinizden öpüyorum.
Sevgili hocam, öğretmenler gününüz kutlu olsun. Ellerinizden öpüyorum. Öğretmenler gününüz kutlu olsun.
Öğretmenler günün kutlu olsun.
Hocam, Türk Hava Yolları, tüm kaptanları adına öğretmenler gününüz kutlu olsun. Tüm emekleriniz için çok teşekkürler hocam. Sizi çok seviyoruz.
Sağ olun.
Buyurun hocam.
Thank you. This is the dearest and warmest and biggest hug that you can receive as a teacher. And that won't happen by teaching only disciplines. That will happen when teachers become gurus. So if teachers can really inculcate right thinking, which is the primary responsibility of a teacher, I think we will be able to solve the issues I have raised earlier in my other prisms that I tried to present to you. And therefore, the one line keeping in today's language in mind is time for education and teachers to reboot. The time has come to reboot. Concluding, I was motivated by just two words, which Aparna spoke to me about. She said, we are having this conference, it's called Reimagining Education. And I thought, this is something I must never miss. I've tried to reimagine education the way I feel it is required to be implemented today. We have to go up the value chain, from providers of information to imparters of knowledge. Now is the third stage to become inspirers of wisdom. And that is the third stage I think we should journey for. To be the change is important, but not to delay the change, ladies and gentlemen, is far more important. Given India's spiritual moorings and divine spirit and its concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the change must begin here, not soon, now. Given its values-based leadership and philosophy, I believe MGM can be the seed from which can grow the Bodhi tree, not in Bodh Gaya, right here in Aurangabad. That is my expectation of MGM. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is on the boil. Humanity is on the boil. The environment is in the boil. But so what? I will conclude with a line from Martin Luther King. He says, even if I were to know that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree. Thank you very much. That's my time. Thank you.
As the saying goes, good speakers tell us who we can be, but great speakers remind us who we want to be. I am sure that all the educators present here today with us agree that you are the guru we look up to, sir. I would also like to quote R.K. Lakshman, a famous cartoonist. Searching for new ideas is an endless process. Thank you, Mr. Doongaji, for your enduring words, challenging us to redefine the purpose of education and embrace innovative approaches that prepare our students for an inclusive and peaceful world. I would like to invite Dr. Aparna Kakkar, the Director of MGM Education Unlimited, to felicitate our torch bearer and inspiration, Mr. Don Doongaji.
We have a few questions for you, sir. This is by Dr. Rashmi Ajmare. She is from Jawaharlal Nehru Engineering College. And her question to you, sir, is how can a society create a person who's living harmoniously with the surrounding, like planet and animals, rather than just being a cultural and social being? And do culture and society create a barrier for us to be humane?
That's quite a question. It's not possible to answer it fully, but it is this very culture that prevents us from becoming what we should become, is what I'm suggesting that we change. And that change must happen from education and educators. So culture in which we are existing today is preventing us from being who we truly are. We have to get into Ekoham Bhausyama concept, which looks after not only human beings but flora, fauna, everything. You find God in every single thing. And do we know how to respect it? So cultural change as an obstruction, maybe that's what we are really facing today. And the only people who can change it is us as educators, teachers. And educators, teachers does not mean universities or classrooms. I learned so much of the philosophy of being right from the people I work for. So this education is not limited to this building and rooms. So the cultural change will happen when everyone changes. But it must begin here, so that you put the right people in the right spots. And then someday, I won't be there, but someday the culture will be different and humanity will be just one element of the ultimate. Universal consciousness, it will be reflected in that type of humanity. It's not an easy task. It's important that we make it happen. That beginning has to happen with us. That's my answer. I hope I've answered you. Otherwise, we can speak over tea if you like. Yeah.
There's one more question, sir. This is by Mr. Harshvardhan Jaju, NAD School of Business Studies and Technology. So he says, sir, I would not call your address less than a satsang.
Wow, easy here, I didn't see him.
Yeah, Harsh is there.
Harsh, how sweet of you to come. This couple has been very dear to me for many years now. Yeah.
So he says, perhaps much more of satsang is required, particularly for leaders, because I see more and more of them about only driving administration, policies, procedures and compliances and targets, and they keep everyone busy in that.
Right.
Where is the time for character building? Your words of wisdom would help us to navigate these times today.
What's the last sentence?
He says your words of wisdom will help us to navigate these times today, and he says, where is the time for character?
Yeah. That's why I said Waqt Nahi. The Waqt Nahi poem is really the answer to that. We have to create that time for ourselves. Don't think that we are going to change leadership. Leadership has to change itself. And that can happen only by soul searching and by changing, allowing ourselves the time to reflect. Allow me 2 minutes. May I? Yeah. The balance between the material and the spiritual. I'd like to share a little story with you. After Alexander had conquered Persia, he was camping, resting in a desert. And one morning when he came out to wash his face, as he was splashing his face with water, he saw that on a hillock nearby, there was a monk, must be a Jain Muni. He was meditating the whole day. He found him at night, still meditating, gazing at the stars, reflecting, nothing happening. He thought this fellow must be a crazy fellow. This he saw for 3 consecutive days, and then his curiosity could not hold him back. So Alexander goes to the monk and he says, what are you doing? The monk says, I'm experiencing nothingness. Alexander thought this was stupid. But the monk said, what are you doing? He said, I'm conquering the world, Alexander said. Now for Alexander, the denominator was 1, and the value of his life was the sum total of all his achievements. Whereas for the monk, the denominator was infinity. And the value of life, whatever he did, ultimately amounted to 0. And for him, therefore, it was important to understand the meaning of life. Now, these are 2 extremes. One is a material extreme and one is a spiritual extreme. I think the golden mean is somewhere in between. As the Gita says, when you work with a feeling of sense of detachment, then I think the monk in you is aroused, and you are able to, be the monk and Alexander at the same time. Christ said, for what shall it profit a man if he should gain the whole world and lose his soul? In Tatas, we are interested in gaining the world, but we are far more interested, and I hope it remains that way, is in protecting the corporate soul. So that is the balance, Harsh.
if I can thank you for your question, and thank you for being here.
This is the concluding question, sir. It's by Ramesh Thakur from MGM Schools. He says, how to correlate... Yeah. Ramesh Thakur, sir, are you here? Yeah. How are you saying cartoon and character? Casteism, okay. How to correlate casteism and character building? Casteism leads to partiality.
Yeah, but that's the cultural change through education I'm trying to achieve. But imagine who Ambedkar was. I think he would be an outstanding example of, irrespective of casteism. I really am against OBC, SC, all these categories really don't make sense to me. We are all Indians at the end of the day. Instead of giving quotas for people, if we could create special institutions for these people. In fact, my driver is a Buddhist, he comes from that class. And he just loves this idea. I said, why should someone of a lower caste be necessarily be inferior to someone from the higher caste who can afford? If I was them, I would abolish all these systems. Of course, I would be maybe assassinated for such an idea. But I would build 100 engineering colleges only for these people. Bring them at par with others, rather than give them the lollipop which earns you votes. So it is possible, it's not impossible. But this is the impossible dream which I am trying to realize through you. And in a way, live again through you. That's what I am trying to do. Thank you.